The Swiss Alps, the very rooftop of Europe near the Italian border. Set in spectacular scenery 6,000 feet above sea level, with 25 crystal clear mountain lakes, is the resort town of St. Moritz. For 3,000 years, St. Moritz has been known for its health springs. Travelers from every continent recognize it as one of the world's most successful vacation resorts. Famous for its sun and champagne climate, St. Moritz has become the playground of the jet set, sporting personalities, and those who admire the colorful alpine splendor. The stunning landscape makes it an all-the-year attraction. A mixture of communities in tranquil valleys, 1,000 or more mountain peaks and the glaciers that shroud them. This is the very essence of Switzerland. It's glaciers like this one, the Piz Corvatsch, that have given their name to one of the world's most remarkable railways. This extraordinary railway snakes its way for 175 miles across southern Switzerland from St. Moritz to Zermatt, linking the peaks of the eastern Alps with those of the west. There is no more memorable nor romantic journey. St. Moritz Station, starting point of our journey, over a line that represents a triumph of engineering. The journey takes 7.5 hours over 291 bridges, through 91 tunnels, and crosses the 6,000 feet high Oberalp pass. A ticket to Zermatt transports you through the alpine heartland of Switzerland. The Glacier Express, run by a network of 3 railway companies, has been in operation since 1930. At first, it ran only during summer months. Now the journey can be made all the year round, thanks to the 9 miles Furka tunnel, the longest narrow-gauge railway tunnel in the world. A final check of the brakes, and the Glacier Express is ready to leave on an exciting adventure. For most travelers, it's a journey of anticipation, an opportunity to conjure up the images of lovely mountain valleys, wild and picturesque canyons, glaciers and snow-covered peaks that are to be explored in the few hours from the comfort of a railway coach. From the very beginning, there is a sense of wonder at the achievements of the builders and miners who faced the immense challenge of constructing a high-altitude railway. Today, the journey remains a tribute to the pioneers who carved a track through rugged and daunting countryside. This is Samadan Station, on the stretch of line operated by the Rhine Railway. The other companies that are part of the enterprise are the Furka Oberalp Railway and the Brig Zermatt Railway. A few miles outside St. Moritz is the first of the constructions that make this railway unique. The Albula tunnel, at nearly 6,000 feet, is the highest tunnel cut through the Swiss mountains, and indeed one of the highest in Europe. Beneath this rolling countryside, the train makes its way through the tunnel for nearly 3.5 miles. Completed in 1903, the tunnel emerges near the small town of Prida. Between Prida and Burgoon is tobogganing country, with what's said to be the longest natural run in Europe. The railway is responsible for transporting the tobogganers every winter from mid-December until well into March. Although the train consists of many carriages, only the red ones form the true Glacier Express, and it's only those that will complete the journey all the way to Zermatt. Within a few moments, the passengers will encounter the next engineering masterpiece, the Tour Tunnel Complex. The train appears to be off on a spree along its tortuous route as it negotiates the spaghetti-like system of bends and tunnels. As the crow flies, the distance between Prida and Burgoon is only 3.5 miles. Yet the difference in altitude is over 1,200 feet. To achieve this, the train has to cover over 7 miles of track. On the way, it follows 3 long loops and passes through 3 loop tunnels. It also crosses a series of viaducts on a short but impressive stretch of track. The train crosses the same stretch of river, the Albula, 4 times. The keen observer sees the same piece of scenery more than once, but it's too beautiful for anyone to complain. The Reichenau tunnel complex is the last before reaching Burgoon, a novel experience with many twists and turns. But for each time spent in a tunnel, there is ample compensation when the train emerges from the other side. Looping the loop in a train can be confusing, especially as the village of Burgoon first appears to passengers on the left and then again on the right. Eventually the track straightens and follows the river Albula along its valley and onto the attractive village. Burgoon, with its 12th century church, is typical of many unspoilt villages in rural Switzerland. Above Burgoon is Lush, a pretty village where the way of life here has changed little over the years. The residents are close to nature. Their homes with carefully tended blooms reflect pride in their surroundings. The traditional Engadine costume is still often worn, adding yet another splash of colour in the village. The wool that goes to make it is spun in the old-fashioned way. The spinning wheel is an integral part of many homes. Flowers play an important part in the villagers' lives. Houses and window boxes make a pleasing contrast to the grey and white mountains all around. From Burgoon, the railway continues to follow the course of the river Albula, northwards along the wide plain. Almost immediately, the train enters the Glacier Express tunnel, over 1,000 feet long. The passengers have hardly seen daylight before they enter a second tunnel under the Burgunestein, another 1/4 mile of darkness. The train emerges in the Albula gorge, high above the river, amid steep wooded mountain slopes. The small town of Villiges is passed through almost unnoticed. Villiges, with its distinctive Engadine-style houses, is situated in an extensive green belt, where the Albula Valley branches off southeastwards. The Glacier Express is of international importance. Few American visitors can resist the magic of one of Europe's greatest narrow-gauge railways. The scenery, such as the river Landwasser flowing southwest to join the Albula, is dramatic enough. But the sheer scale of the line is another dimension. In 1902, the Landwasser viaduct was built to span the river. Today, it is still one of the finest railway bridges in Switzerland. The train moves on to the curved bridge from a tunnel 200 feet high in the rock face. The train seemingly clings to the precipitous rock face as it crosses the valley over the imposing viaduct. A second viaduct, almost as impressive as the first, spans the smitten Tobel. The track continues downhill bound for Alverneuil, that lies in a sunny position at an altitude of 3,800 feet on the left side of the valley. The train passes Alverneuil Bar, a once famous spa with sulfur springs that date back to the days of the Roman Empire. The Rhine Railway connects the major valleys with each other in the Grisons, the largest canton in Switzerland. An alpine railway abounding in masterly achievements, the Glacier Express is one of the jewels in its crown. The fertile valley of Tiefencastle. The town, with its houses built in steps up the hillside, is characteristic of a community which has grown up at the foot of a mountain pass. The Baroque St. Stephan's Church, built in 1652, stands above the town. The train moves on past a dam bound for Thusis. Running alongside lakes and precipices, across valleys and rivers, into the mountains and out again, the railway builder's skill becomes more apparent. The track fits well into the landscape. Harmony exists between original nature and the works of man's hand. The driver decreases speed to pass through the next station. Thusis marks the end of the Albula section of the Rhine Railway that has taken us the 36 miles from St. Moritz. Over this distance, the Glacier Express has descended more than 3,000 feet. The Glacier Express now moves off on the next leg of its journey to Reichenau. The scenery changes abruptly. This region of Switzerland is called Burgenland. It's a fertile, picturesque area with no less than 20 ruined fortresses and castles. The country is renowned for its cleanliness, no more so than its well-kept railway stations. From here, it's a more or less straight flat run to Reichenau. It's been a route of technical wonders and scenic spectacle. The iron bridge spans the Hinter Rhine, just outside Reichenau Tarmin's station, at the point where the two arms of the Rhine meet in a wide valley. On the station, passengers await the train. So far, 55 miles have been completed, and now it's time to prepare for the next part of the journey. It's here that the Glacier Express is uncoupled. The front end of the train will continue to Chur, to the northeast. Chur, with a population of 37,000, is the capital city of the Grisons and stretches across the Rhine Valley. There's been a settlement here since 3000 BC. back to Reichenau, a town that is only a fraction of the size of Chur, but boasts a beautiful 14th century castle that was once the refuge of Louis Philippe, the exiled King of France. At Reichenau station, the Glacier Express has been hooked up to a locomotive that will take it on the next leg of its journey. The majority of the all-electric railway system in Switzerland is based on a single track, especially in the mountainous areas. Two-way traffic runs with the aid of various passing places en route. The network is divided into safety zones or blocks. Via a system of flashing lights, the operator knows exactly where the trains are at any time. The train now sets out on its long run to Zermatt. Next stop, Elanz. Through the next tunnel lies the deep Rhine gorge. On sunny terraces high over the Rhine are villages which have developed into sports resorts open all year round. Where the river Rhine has cut its way through the valleys, huge white cliffs as high as 900 feet have been formed. Each spring, swollen by melting snow, the river will carve the valley a fraction deeper. The remarkable white ravines are an impressive sight, and they've made the railway engineer's job a little easier. The train continues up the valley past Cascading, a community surrounded by idyllic countryside. Not far from Cascading, going southwestward, is the town of Elanz. Elanz is an ancient market town situated in a fertile valley at the foot of the Signina group of mountains. The elegant town dates back to medieval times. Parts of the town wall were destroyed by fire in 1717 and rebuilt with the help of the cantons of Bern and Zurich. As the cows are brought down to their winter grazing, the closing barriers indicate that the train is about to leave. The Glacier Express heads towards Trun, climbing gradually up the Vorder Rhine. The journey is smooth as the driver moves towards one of the many river bridges to be crossed. Here's an opportunity to talk to some of the passengers for their impressions of the railway.
I'm excursion director for the Pacific Coast Chapter Railway and Locomotive Historical Society out of San Francisco. And we try to find railroads all around the world that are fascinating. So I planned this trip about 8 months ago and included every rail in Switzerland that would cover every tunnel, major tunnel. That's why we're on the this train today, because we want to go through the new Furka tunnel that was established last year and opened in 1982.
We're members of the Railroad and Locomotive Historical Society based on the Pacific Coast, and we've come to Switzerland to ride on all of your trains.
It's a first-class type of train. The scenery is above anything you can imagine. You're going to see right at this moment, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking out and see this gorgeous valley here with the high mountains and the streams running through. And we have the beautiful viaducts and this hairpin turns and everything. This makes rail fans just, it's just like your whole blood boils. It's just something that's for rail fans. I'm not a railroad man myself. I'm a steamship man, but railroad just zong me, you know, and the people. I've got 39 people on this train right now, and every one of them is having a great, great time.
Just love it. They're so clean. We love the whole countryside. Everything is so clean.
We still got another 2 weeks to go riding trains. We're really going to have a ball in Switzerland.
It's outstanding, yes.
It was at Troon in 1424 that the oath of the Grauenbundisch was taken under a maple tree near St. Anna's Chapel, setting the seal on the creation of the canton of Grisons. The chapel still stands, though the tree has long since gone. From Troon, the train snakes its way upward along the valley, through fields and villages, under the shadow of the Vorder Rheintal towards Disentis. The pastoral scene remains undisturbed. The famous express glides effortlessly past Swiss farmsteads. This is an area of striking contrasts and extraordinary geographic complexity, resulting in a terrain of great variety. Many of the people still live in villages at over 3,500 feet, although there is a growing tendency to seek more remunerative work in the valleys and lowlands. The covered wooden bridge behind the road and railway bridges dates back to 1857. The three of them span the wild Rusein-back. The narrow Rusein Valley widens as we approach Disentis. Travelers have a sense of exhilaration as the train negotiates the very edge of the hillside. This is the approach to Disentis station. Since the beginning of the 1970s, Disentis Münster has become a popular winter sport resort with well-prepared cross-country ski trails. The 8th century Benedictine Abbey with its dazzling white facade is the town's most distinctive building. Today, it's a high school and museum. Disentis marks the end of the Rhine railway that has covered the 90 miles from St. Moritz. Now it's the turn of the Furka Oberalp railway to take over. The next 60 miles under its control promises to be an unforgettable experience. The carriages are hitched to a more powerful engine for the adventurous journey ahead. Over the track operated by the Furka Oberalp, the Glacier Express will rise to a height of more than 6,000 feet. That's 4 times the height of the Empire State Building, and encounter gradients of almost 1 in 5. This section of the journey crosses the celebrated Oberalp Pass, but that's a treat to come. Now there's less demanding countryside for the engine. Just outside Disentis station is the first incline. While the train grinds its way forward, the ticket collector makes his rounds. The entire route is a test of the bridge builder's skills. The 291 bridges on the journey come in many shapes and sizes. The time has come to leave the Zermatt valley behind. The train continues by passing over a 200-foot long curved viaduct straddling the river Albula. As the scenery grows wilder, lunch is served. Eating off a plate while going uphill isn't too much of a problem. Coping with a glass of wine, on the other hand, could be. So travellers on the Glacier Express are served with a unique leaning glass to overcome the difficulty of the steep gradients. Our train continues its journey along the valley, crossing a 350-foot-long high viaduct over the Bugnai Valley. Houses flank the valley, leading to the village of Sedrun. Sedrun is part of the Tuyech community, a cluster of 8 settlements with a population of about 1,500. The main village, Sedrun, has numerous modern buildings as well as the old wooden houses. As the train makes its way between the various villages that litter the valley floor, it begins to climb once more. On really steep gradients, a rack and pinion system is used. The tooth rail in the center of the track and a system of cogs and gears in the engine provide the heavy train with a safe grip when going up and down gradients. 13 miles in the Furka Oberalp section are rack and pinion. The grandeur of the setting around the Oberalp Pass near Calmot station is a foretaste of the scenery yet to come. From here, the landscape begins to change dramatically. The lush green pastures are left far below. The Glacier Express grinds its way up to the Oberalp Pass, which with the Furka tunnel are the 2 greatest features of this section of the railway. Both are a monument to the railway pioneers who made them possible. The train passes through a gallery here on the lake's northern shore. It's a protection against avalanches and rockfalls. As the 2.5-mile flat section reaches an end, it's back on the rack and pinion for the descent. We've climbed to a height of over 6,000 feet and must now drop down nearly 2,000 feet to the village of Andermatt. But first, a series of maneuvers along a winding route have to be completed before reaching Andermatt, nestling in the valley below. The challenge of the terrain was met with ingenuity. The railway line runs through 3 loop tunnels, going over, under and parallel to the pass road. Even the most seasoned travellers are impressed by the scale and complexity of it. Eyes are glued to carriage windows, taking in the beauty of the rugged surroundings. There are 3 long double loops and dizzy changes from darkness to light. Andermatt hardly seems to get closer with each part of the cautious yet breathtaking descent down the narrow winding curves. The village is hemmed in on 3 sides by granite rock slopes, yet it stands at the junction of 3 routes to the cantons of Reichenau, Valais and Grisons. Eventually, it draws nearer after a stimulating downward journey. Finally, after rounding the last steep bend, the station looms into view. It's a busy place, with its strategic position making it an important alpine communications center. The village lies in a hollow from which the river Reuss makes its way through the Schollenen Gorge. Andermatt is the main village in the Urseren Valley and has developed into a major winter sports center without losing any of its charm. From here, it's on to Hospental and on down the Urseren Valley to Rialp. Rock-strewn slopes are passed on the way to Hospental in the valley, which forms a large trough in a fold of the Central Alps. Yet another river is crossed as the Glacier Express moves forward with ease and grace. The train travels along the valley floor, running more or less parallel with both the river and road. In summer, the setting has an awe-inspiring quality. In winter storms, it is decidedly inhospitable. The high alpine meadows provide a rather bleak backdrop. For most of the year, this area is covered by a thick layer of snow hiding the stark slopes. The railway line and main road run parallel for over 1 mile before reaching Reichenau. The station here provides a convenient crossing place. Just outside Reichenau is one of the major achievements in railway engineering this century, the Furka base tunnel, 9 miles long and carved through solid rock. After 9 years and 225 million Swiss francs, the tunnel was opened in 1982. Drilling the tunnel turned out to be a mining challenge. Miners called it the hardest, dirtiest, and most dangerous work they'd ever done. The opening of the tunnel was the beginning of a new era for the Glacier Express. For the first time, a journey by train from Reichenau to Oberalp was possible all year round. Previously, the train had to climb the Furka pass over 6,500 feet high, a journey that was only possible for 5 months of the year during the summer. Parts of the line lay in the paths of avalanches, and each winter 290 electric cable masts had to be taken down and stored. Even a steel bridge had to be dismantled to prevent it from being swept away. In the old days, the closure of the stretch of line between Reichenau and Oberalp caused financial losses. The cost of the tunnel escalated greatly during construction because of unexpected rock formations and unforeseen difficulties. But today, the linking of the alpine cantons of Valais, Uri and Grisons all the year has brought economic benefit to the people who live here. It is true to say the tunnel has transformed the Glacier Express service. It's hailed as an example of man's determination to overcome formidable difficulties. The tunnel remains a tribute to the miners from Italy, Spain, Portugal and Switzerland who built it, and a memorial to the 5 Italians who lost their lives during construction. The journey continues through glorious green countryside. From here, the train follows the course of the river Rhone and runs parallel to the road. There are the towns and villages of the Goms region. It's paradise in winter for cross-country skiing. There are numerous trails up to 30 miles long. From here, it's mostly downhill all the way to Brig. Looking at the scenery, it's hard to imagine that for 40 years the Glacier Express was only operational during the summer months. The Furka base has provided new opportunities for winter travel, and powerful snow plows make sure the rest of the line is clear. Many of the tunnels are fitted with automatic doors to keep the snow out. Although the tunnel has eliminated the thrill of crossing the Furka Pass, it still has a switchback quality. As the train leaves the Fiesch Valley, the final bend reveals the town of Fiesch, the gateway to the Eggeshorn and its mighty glacier perched amid the Alps. Cable cars put the Eggeshorn within easy reach of Fiesch, that is also the starting point to the Bin Valley. In recent years, Fiesch has developed rapidly, with modern houses and hotels built on the slopes. A notable feature is the church built in New Gothic style. The journey continues along a track cut into the hillside. But a change of scenery is not far away. The Glacier Express enters a 1/3 of a mile-long spiral tunnel to emerge onto the Rhone viaduct, an impressive bridge some 150 feet high. From here, it's just a short run downhill to Brig. Our journey of contrasts has revealed a combination of alpine glory and railway engineering skills which few lines can rival. Brig is a major rail junction, and it's here that the custody of the Glacier Express is handed over from the Furka Oberalp to the Brig Zermatt railway. The locomotives are changed once more, and preparations are made for the final stage of the journey to Zermatt. Brig, at the foot of the famous Simplon Pass, was originally a market town. The pass was the main route for trade with Italy, a fact which made the 17th century Stockalper family a fortune. With it they built their magnificent palace, the largest private residence in Switzerland. It was bought by the town in 1948 and restored with the help of the nation. The time has come for the Glacier Express to leave. Watched by the passengers, the guard gives the signal for the train to depart. The town of Zermatt is 25 miles away from here, and it's uphill all the way. This line from Brig to Visp and Zermatt has 38 bridges and passes, through 7 tunnels and 9 avalanche galleries. 2.5 miles beyond Visp, the railway, sandwiched between the road, passes under 2 arched masonry bridges in the Visp Valley. Further on lies Stalden, where the south-facing slopes are covered with vineyards. Stalden forms the boundary between the alpine and vineyard regions. From here, it's back on the rack. For railway enthusiasts, it's been a day to remember.
We've been on trains all over the world, and this is about the most spectacular. The scenery, it's just beautiful.
Out of all the trains that I've taken, and there aren't all that many, this has to be the most spectacular of all of them.
Oh, this is the greatest. It really is. It's fantastic. Can't wait to come here again.
The passing scene served to emphasize the words of appreciation. Beyond Stalden, the landscape is scarred by deep ravines and gorges. Now there's just St. Niklaus and Tasch to come before the final destination. Here the railway crosses the Moorbach, 150 feet below, and enters a tunnel that is one of 6 between Stalden and Karl Petran. The pioneers who applied to construct a narrow-gauge railway from Visp to Zermatt in 1886 promised it would increase the number of visitors to a valley described as a pearl in the alpine world. In those days, part of the route was only a mule track. On the steep slopes, gushing mountain streams have cut deep channels. In his mirror, the engine driver has time to take in the sparkling waters splashing over rocks on the riverbed. Another settlement approaches. Emerging into the Nikolai Valley, the Glacier Express passes through St. Niklaus. All that remains of the original church is the tower, with its onion-shaped cupola. An avalanche destroyed it in 1747. In the early days of the railway at St. Niklaus, villagers offered passengers black cherries, wild strawberries, and even alpine roses or edelweiss. Today, the Glacier Express is just as welcome, but the passengers have to rely on the dining car for their gastronomic delights. The line to Zermatt, which takes passengers through the Matter Valley deep into the heart of the Alps, was very popular from the time it was opened in stages in 1890 and 91. Even before the turn of the century, it was carrying tens of thousands of passengers each year. Since then, it has transported many millions. The small village of Rhine heralds the final few miles of our journey through the Swiss Alps. It's hard to imagine that Rhine was completely destroyed when a glacier plunged into the valley over 150 years ago. But for cars, the journey will be shorter. The train will soon be passing through Tasch. If you're traveling to Zermatt by road, then Tasch is the nearest place you'll get. Cars have to be parked here. Indeed, it's said to be the largest car park in Europe and covers many acres. Tasch serves this purpose because Zermatt is a traffic-free town. The only way in is by rail, on foot or on horseback. The journey's end is in sight, but the spectacle is by no means finished. More scenic pleasures are still to unfold. As the train begins its ascent, another glacier looms into view. In the approach to Zermatt, time to reflect on a marathon journey connecting the highest peaks and glaciers around St. Moritz with those of the Western Alps of Zermatt. Ahead lies the final tunnel, number 91. And from it, the train emerges into Zermatt station, and the end of our 175-mile adventure aboard the Glacier Express. The high-altitude resort, standing at 5,300 feet, is a place bustling with activity. At the station, horse-drawn carriages and electric buses await to ferry you and your luggage to your destination. It's a cosmopolitan place for visitors from all over the world. Although an alpine metropolis, Zermatt has retained a sense of tranquility and character all of its own. In the golden age of alpinism, it drew resolute mountaineers like a magnet. They claim a stay in Zermatt strengthens the heart muscles and improves blood circulation. The town itself is a mass of dazzling color. Every house has ranks of window boxes spilling over with geraniums. Even amid the little sun-browned houses of the back streets of the old town, flowers are to be found. Our journey across Switzerland would hardly be complete without taking the cableway up to Stockholm to see the Matterhorn. The Glacier Express has taken us across the whole length of southern Switzerland, from the Rhine to the Rhone, over bridges, through tunnels, and amid the splendor of the Swiss Alps. It's a constant reminder of the achievements of the miners, engineers, and draftsmen who made possible this famous journey. The Glacier Express is regarded as one of the world's great railways.